This is an introductory PowerPoint for TMM 1247 and TMM 2237, Sustaining the World, the Christian Faith and the Environment. Although some of you have met me before, I thought it'd be a good idea if I introduced myself. My interest in the environment and Christianity came from 3 different places, which ultimately coalesced into a call from God. Firstly, it arose from missional questions. I found myself pondering the decline of the Christian faith in this country and wondered whether there was something about how we were presenting the good news of Christ that was failing to answer the questions of our time. I concluded that the big question of our age was, what does good news look like against a backdrop of environmental degradation? But I didn't know the answer. I'm not sure I do to this day. However, the issue became more real to me at the General Synod of all places. There we hear from bishops in the Anglican Communion, and they spoke on more than one occasion of how for them climate change was not a future threat but a present reality. They spoke of its devastating effects, and I wondered how I could, as a member of the body of Christ, hear their pleas and do nothing to help. Finally, I got a role at St. John's Shero, which has an award-winning site of nature conservation for a churchyard. My people there were passionate about the environment, biodiversity, opposing fracking and animal rights, but were unable to make any connection from this to their Christian faith. They had a sense that God might be pleased with what they were doing, but that was all. As a result of these 3 experiences, I started to educate myself and think about what I could do. But I'm not a scientist, I'm not particularly a nature lover, but I am a preacher and a teacher, and perhaps to some small degree a theologian. So when I found myself working part-time, I reoriented my ministry, becoming an environmental champion for the Diocese of Leeds, joining the General Synod Environment Group, of which I am Vice Chair, embarking on a doctorate in the theological motivations of environmental activists, and serving on the National Environmental Working Group. I'm also co-designing a lay training course for the Ministry of Eco-Missioner. Most transformationally, though, I started a blog site, Greening the Lectionary, which looked at the lectionary readings for each week through what I thought of as a green lens of ecological and social justice. That changed everything for me, as I began to see that the environment is not an issue, but the context in which we find ourselves, the context in which we proclaim the gospel, love our neighbour, and engage in prophetic action. I believe that you, as the leaders in mission in Christchurch, will benefit from this course. Because if the ecological crisis is the defining feature of our age, then we must factor it into what God is calling us to do and to be. We will need to think about how Jesus is the answer to young people's concerns about their future, or the farmer whose land no longer yields a harvest, or the family who are displaced because of floods, or children unable to find clean water. We will need to navigate climate denial and eco-anxiety in the people we minister to. We will need to think about climate resilience and the adaptation of our church buildings, finances and church land. The aim of this course then is not to give you answers, but to give you the information, approaches and suggested methods to begin to navigate these questions, and questions that haven't even been thought of yet. At the start of a course, everyone wants to know about assessments. Details of the assessments are found in the handbook, but they're also on here. So the first assessment will take place in class, and you will be invited to prepare and deliver a short presentation which informs the group about one of the following topics, identifying the key aspects of the topic, points for prayer, and suggesting a Christian response. So on the 18th of January, I'd like us to look at climate change and biodiversity loss. On the 25th of January, environmental racism and the global availability of fresh water. And on the 2nd of February, pollution and animal welfare. I would like us to cover all the topics, and so I will be assigning topics, but please could you give some consideration to those that you would like to do and enter your first 3 choices into the forum, and then I'll assign them depending on demand. If you click on the blue link on this slide, you should be taken to the marking criteria for oral presentations. Because you had so little choice about the first assignment, the second assignment is a choice of 2. And you'll be marked according to the criteria for a resource for others, although I'm not asking for a commentary. So I'd like you either to create sermon notes for the website sustainablepreaching.org, and I've given you a suggested date, or prepare a script or a presentation for your local green network, which talks about the distinctive approach of the Christian faith and the Church of England to the environment. And these are due in on the 9th of February. These are the learning outcomes if you are on level 4. And these are the learning outcomes for level 5. Regardless of whether you're level 4 or level 5, you don't need to meet all the learning outcomes in both of the assignments, but over the course of the 2 assignments, all the learning outcomes should be shown to be met. The first assignment lends itself well to showing learning outcome 1 more easily than the second assignment. Unlike some of your other modules, this course is interdisciplinary. We'll be dipping our toe into the earth sciences, economics, environmental philosophy, as well as all of the subdisciplines of theology, biblical studies, missiology, doctrine, ethics, and practical theology. It isn't possible to master or become an expert in all these areas, so please select the areas that are of interest to pursue further. In the first week, we have a guest speaker, Tim Lamont, who is a marine biologist at Lancaster Environment Centre, with research interests in coral reef ecology and restoration. Tim has carried out research on coral reefs across the Indo-Pacific region and completed a PhD in bioacoustics at the University of Exeter in 2020. He started his current research fellowship at Lancaster in 2022, funded by the Royal Commission and in collaboration with the Mars Coral Reef Restoration Programme. Hearing from Tim will ground our reflections in challenging facts about one aspect of the ecological crisis, the crisis in the Earth's oceans. Thinking about the context of a world where humans are impacting on planetary systems, a backdrop or an age that's sometimes known as the Anthropocene, and its implications for mission. In the third week, we'll be thinking about the disciplinary of eco-theology, with a particular focus on how the Bible has been used to support or resist a pro-environmental agenda. During the fourth week, we'll be thinking about the reasons why Christians get involved in environmentalism, why this matters to Christians, and some approaches to environmental ethics. And finally, in the last week, we will be looking at the approach of the Church of England, both historically and currently, and how we might involve and encourage our congregations to make a practical response to environmental challenges. In this course, I'm attempting something new for me, which is a partially flipped learning approach. The idea of flipped learning is that you learn the information part of the course at home, so that you can spend more time discussing and using that information in class and helping each other prepare for the second assignment. So I will be pre-recording some of my lectures for you to watch in advance. This had the disadvantage that you won't be able to ask immediate questions if you don't understand something. However, it does give you time to Google any terminology that you don't understand. And at the beginning of each session, I will include time for questions about the lecture. Additionally, there is a Moodle forum which you can use to ask immediate questions and respond to the questions that are contained in the pre-recorded lectures. So I hope that you enjoy the course, and I look forward to seeing you on the 5th of January.